Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Arif Harbott. Hey, Arif, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you for being here today. Just giving you, gonna give the people a little bit of your background before we get started,
Sure.
And we can dive into your story. Arif is a modern CTO and an angel investor who is an expert at using technology to deliver impact at a speed by combining strategy with cutting-edge technology. He has experience managing 2,000 plus people and extensive budgets upwards of 1 billion. He has also been a founder and angel investor to multiple successful startups. Born in the digital age, Arif has been on the front line of technology for years, generating huge amounts of real-world experience in trenches. He uses a pragmatic, value-driven style to find ways that the latest innovations in next-generation tech can fuel company success to transform businesses and improve performance. He currently advises some of the world's largest and most iconic companies on innovation, growth, strategy, and technology. Wow, man, that's amazing. And I always like the stories of, and the people that are on the show, a lot of the things that they're doing and the things they've been able to accomplish. And that's so good to see that. I also want to know, a lot of times people don't have that in their mind, or it's one of those challenges where you're kind of growing to be able to get to that. So why don't you tell us where you're from right now, where you are tuning in, and how was your upbringing like?
Yeah, I was born and raised in London, UK. My mum is African Indian and my dad is from London. So my mum came over to study when she was about 18. She was born in Tanzania, but her family are Indian. So she came over to study, met my dad, got married, and the rest is history. So that was quite a big shape. It was a big shape in my life, having a mum who was obviously not English. I grew up in a part of London that had lots of different ethnic cultures, minorities, people of different sexualities, colors, creeds, races. So I grew up in an incredibly diverse part of the world. Obviously having a mixed race mum and dad meant I've grown up with a very open mind, very tolerant of cultures, a fusion, taking the best of lots of different people's ideas. And I think that's been quite a big thread within my life. I kind of like to say the strong ideas loosely held. I'm very opinionated until something else comes along that I think is better. And then I'm very okay to discard some of my ideas and be flexible enough to take on some new ones. So I think a lot of that comes from my upbringing in a very culturally diverse part of the world.
Yeah, and let me ask you, being part of a very with your parents, two different cultures, and then being raised in a very diverse place, did you ever had any major challenges growing up, or did you see any kind of different people were treating you differently in any aspect, by no means, or any challenges that you did maybe growing up just because of the mix of race?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely, although I look very light-skinned, my mum is very dark, and there was racism at school for sure. Yeah, I went to a school on the outskirts of London where there weren't many mixed race people, there weren't many black kids. I think there's one black kid in my school. So I was the racial guy. And I got teased and like some things about racism and having an Indian family and the kind of normal stuff you get with like teenagers. And it was I'm a pretty resilient guy, so some of that did. I mean, obviously, you're a young kid. It does get to you to a certain degree, but I think ultimately makes you stronger. I think you're going to get a lot of obstacles in your life, and obviously, I, like everyone who's listening, will have had some obstacles, and I think having that resilience and some of that tough going. I mean, look, I grew up in a middle class part of London. Was I fighting for my life? No. Was I living in poverty? No. But as a teenager, that was almost as bad, right? Because you can't empathize with people who are in tougher parts of the world. So for me, that was a trial. That was a test, but that you come through it stronger, and you learn and grow, don't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. And growing up, what was like maybe your ambition, or what was that one thing you wanted to do when you were older, right? I think we as kids, we always want to have, we have this vision. We want to be a police officer, we want to be a doctor, we want to be a lawyer. Like there's all these different things, right? Or I want to be an astronaut. Um, did any of that come to fruition, or what was it that you wanted to do growing up?
I knew what I wanted to be from about age 4. So I wanted to be a professional tennis player. I picked up tennis when I was about 4 years old. I played extensively when I was young in my teens, and then I went on to be a semi-professional tennis player. I traveled the world playing tournaments, went to Eastern Europe, Spain, France, America, all over Europe and kind of America playing tennis. So I kind of lived that ambition from a very young age. I was obsessed with tennis. I watched it. I thought about it. I had coaching. I would walk down the street practicing my shots, much to my mum and dad's annoyance. So yeah, I was absolutely obsessed and committed and dedicated to becoming a tennis player.
Yeah, and even with that, I have here in my notes that one of your big obstacles or challenges was really during that time where you were playing tennis. Obviously, you're traveling all over the world, and then you went to Hungary, and you were, you were dealing with the mafia there. So tell me about that story, because I think that's pretty unique. And not only
Yeah.
that, I want to know some of the lessons from that.
Yeah, I mean, traveling around, I was young, right? I was like 18, 19, didn't have much money. I'm going to some parts of the world that I didn't know well: Croatia, Yugoslavia, Hungary, places that I didn't know, kind of Eastern Europe, that perhaps were a little bit poorer than the United Kingdom at the time. I know they're very prosperous now, but kind of back then, some of them were very war torn, like Yugoslavia and Croatia have just been through kind of independence and that kind of thing. So it was a different part of the world for me. So there was, in Hungary specifically, I was playing a tournament. I was traveling with my coach, and I was playing a local guy. And there was obviously some betting going on. I mean, there was a lot of betting going on throughout the matches. And as I was playing, these line of 4 limousines turned up, and these guys got out of the car, huge guys, massive, and they took their shirts off, and they had tattoos everywhere, and they had scars, and it was like walking into a Scarface movie. And they sat down either side of my coach, one either side, and then around the back of him. And they said, "Your boy needs to lose." And so my coach came down to me and he said, "Look, you've got to lose this match. You've got to throw this match. Do not win this match. These guys want you to lose." And I was stupid and young and headstrong, and I was like, "No, I'm going to win this match." And they obviously, the more and more of them are crowding around my coach, kind of putting pressure and saying, "Your boy needs to lose." And I didn't. I went on to win, and nothing happened. Obviously, it was just scare tactics. And I think that's a really strong lesson, that sometimes when you're scared, sometimes when the pressure is on, bad things don't always happen. Obviously, sometimes they do, but usually it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. And I think that gives you some kind of self-confidence to push through when you're facing those really big fears. And okay, some of it was partly I was young and stupid. Maybe would I do the same thing now when I've got 2 kids and a wife? I don't know, maybe not. But it was an interesting lesson nonetheless.
Yeah, and actually, I really like that, and I like the analogy of that, and just the lesson, because that can be done in not just in your personal life, also in your professional life. And I think that a lot of times we allow the fear of something to take away the opportunity that's in front of us, right? And you're right. I mean, sometimes we paint this picture that this is something bigger than what it is, and in reality it's not. Yet again, because we're so fearful, or we have all these things that are getting in the way, that are pretty much telling us not to follow through or not do whatever we have to do or not go after that job or not go after that business idea because we are so fearful. And I love the fact that, I think to an extent, if you really want something, you got to go out and do it, even if you have that fear, just because, again, that end result may not be as bad as you think it is, right? And as you said, I mean, there's different stories and different occasions. Nevertheless, historically speaking, and just looking at everything from that perspective, it may not be as that bad. And so I love that analogy.
Mm.
So, in terms of obviously, what happened? How come you end up giving up tennis, or why did you stop playing?
As I mentioned, I'm quite headstrong and determined in one thing, but I'm also quite flexible. And something happened to me when I was playing. I was about 2 years into my career, so I was about 20 years old by this point. And a friend of mine had a laptop. This was 1999, so the internet was just coming online. And he was a mathematician. He knew how to code, and he taught me some basic coding. And I fell absolutely in love with the coding, the internet, it was the Wild West back then, right? I mean, 99, you don't have some of the huge brands. I mean, Facebook wasn't around, Instagram wasn't around. People were figuring it out. It was very community driven. It was very collaborative. It was a democratization of knowledge at the time. There weren't the big corporations like there were now around the internet, and obviously times have changed. So I just fell absolutely in love with that. Pretty much immediately hung up my tennis boots and just became obsessed with technology and how technology can enable business growth, business development, save costs, grow customer satisfaction. Any way you can use technology to get a competitive edge or drive your business performance, not fluffy technology, not technology for technology's sake. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in how it can achieve meaningful results. So that fusion of technology and business are just my two absolute passions and obsessions.
Yeah. So that's where the idea came about, and I said, I got to get involved and jump on this wagon and figure this whole technology, especially at the beginning stages. And now that has led you to do all the things you've done and really position yourself as a modern tech leader and an investor, an angel investor on these aspects. So tell me more about that journey. Like, how do you step into something like that? Definitely. Technology there, as we look at technology right now, like it feels like every month there's a new iPhone. It feels like every so often there's so much technology, and I know technology is very broad and there's so much to it. Nevertheless, it's moving super fast. And so how do you keep up with that? Number one, with that demand. Number two, how do you are so in tune to be able to help and assist your clients with that?
I mean, it helps that I'm absolutely passionate and love what I do. So I love reading about technology. And obviously, as you get into the community, you speak to people at conferences, you find the right blog posts, the right news feeds. Obviously, information starts being shared with you. You share information with others. So I think part of it is just being tapped into the community. I think technology is very, very challenging if you do it by yourself. You have to get that outside perspective from everyone in the industry, whether that's people that's working in hardware or software or any part of the value chain of technology. So I think that's the first thing, keeping up to date. That's tough, but it's doable. The real magic is how do you work out which of the technologies will really drive meaningful results for your business? That is where the real magic is. And it's not easy, right? A lot of it comes from experience. So let's take something simple like robotic process automation, RPA. So what that does is it takes human-like tasks and you teach a machine to do it. So it's used a lot in call centers. It's used a lot in finance back office for repetitive systems. How do you know which processes are suitable for RPA? Everyone knows about RPA. I could give you 1,000 companies that are great at RPA. There are not many companies that can say, right, here are the top 10 processes that you need to implement RPA on. And here's why. So it's that real value-driven approach. It's understanding what results the business needs to achieve. With RPA, typically it's cost takeout. You're trying to reduce costs or improve efficiency. So it's mapping out the business in a really kind of clear, coherent way and saying, right, of the 5,000 processes, I've looked at the value of each of those processes and I've applied some kind of scoring metric to it. And I think these top 10 are the ones that are going to be the easiest, add the most value, whatever your criteria might be, and then trying to map that to the technology. There are very few people who can do that, or very few firms that do that. You either have very strong technologists, or you have very strong business people, business processes. There's not that many people who sit in the middle. I'm quite fortunate. I have an MBA and I have a very technical background, and it just so happens that I love business and technology. So I just naturally sit in the middle, can talk to the techies. I can get really deep. I'm still very technical. And equally, I can talk to a CFO, CMO, CPO, whoever it is, about their kind of business needs. And then trying to match the two is what I just love doing, and where I feel a lot of business have the most value from what I can offer.
Yeah, no, and that's you definitely have a huge advantage to be able to speak to both spectrums of the business, right? That's so critical. One thing that I keep hearing a lot is that as we continue to evolve and continue to see all these different technologies, so many different things coming up, and just came to mind, and I don't know much about this, and maybe you can give me some insight. Is people are afraid that the AI, artificial intelligence, will be taking over a lot of different jobs, a lot of different, things that companies are doing now just because of that technology, right? The artificial technology. What is your take on that? Seeing it from that perspective and being very involved on the technology side.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. I mean, no one knows, right? But what I've observed so far is that the jobs will shift. So you think about over time, people used to go down mines, or they used to work in different kind of factories, and a lot of that has been automated through technology. That doesn't mean people don't have jobs anymore. They just shift into other jobs or industries. Now, does that mean that a certain population of people may have to retrain or may not be able to find work? That very possibly. But my kind of true belief is that as technology starts to take over the what I call quote unquote more repetitive, or I say simpler, I don't mean to be derogatory of some of this work, but the easier things to understand, then knowledge and workers will shift to do other things. And the way I like to think about it is, it's like Iron Man. You have Tony Stark, the human being, and you have Jarvis, the computer, and each is bringing something very special. What I don't believe in is making computers like humans. I think that humans are already great at being humans. So let's leave the computers to do what they do well: crunch huge amounts of data, very fast computations, massive amounts of analysis, things that a human being can't do. And then you fuse that with a human that's making a real judgment call, thinking about emotions, thinking about the impact and the wider implications of what they're doing. So I see technology, AI, other technologies augmenting and making people better at what they do, rather than saying, right, 50% of the population is now not going to have a job. I mean, like I say, I can't see the future, but I just don't see that being the case. If you think about all the technical revolutions over time, okay, yes, there are more today than there were previously, but it's never resulted in 100% or 50% of an entire industry like going jobless. It will impact certain skills for sure, but I think people are very resilient, and I think there will always be place, at least for the next 50 to 100 years, for a human being. I think what we have is very special.
Got it. Yeah, and yeah, I know that that's definitely been a huge fear of many people, and definitely it's been a big topic, and you just see it, and it's one of those things that as things are evolving, definitely technology, I believe, is doing some great things for us, and at the same time, some people are fearful of what can do in the other spectrum, and it's just amazing to see how in the last couple of years, we were able to communicate or even have like this kind of conversation. Where we're in two different places in the world, and yet it seems like we're right next door, right? So the technology is amazing from that perspective. Obviously, you have a lot. You have an MBA. You've know a lot about technology. You're a CTO. You're an angel investor. You've done a lot of those things. I'm curious to know what was that driving factor to be able to get you to that discipline, or what were some of those things that you did to really get you in that state of mind?
I'm an extremely disciplined person. I like to think that's partly because of the tennis growing up. There was a lot of practice, grind, repeat, make a mistake, learn, repeat, go again, lose, win, go again. Every day you're in the grind. So I think I'd like to think it was a skill. I think part of it is my mum and dad upbringing. They really pushed me hard. They were like, we want you to be successful. We want you to do well. And they were critical when I needed that. And then they were supportive when I needed that also. I think part of it is just the way I'm wired. I'm an incredibly disciplined person. I think I read a book when I was really young, and it's called Slaying the Dragon by Michael Johnson, the 200 and 400 meter record holder from the United States, 96 Olympics. I still remember him getting the world record. It's amazing. And he had a quote in his book that really resonated with me. He said, discipline is doing what needs to be done, even if you don't want to do it. And there are things in my life I don't want to do, but I do it because I have to, and because I know it's going to make me better or drive me forward or get me to where I want to be. It doesn't mean I always enjoy everything I do, but I enjoy the process of getting there more. And that kind of makes me overcome the fact that I've got to do certain tasks that I don't want to do. So I think a lot of that came from my upbringing. And a lot of that came from the kind of forces that shaped me when I was young, playing tennis and reading books like Slaying the Dragon.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned. There's a couple of things here that if people that are not listening or watching, they didn't catch that. I like the idea of you got to repeat, and it reminds me of one of my mentors. He said you have to rehearse, review, and revise, and so you got to just continue to do that, right? You're gonna do something, and if it didn't look out or come out the way you wanted, go ahead and review it and then do it again, right? The other thing too is that practice that you say, you win, you lost, you win, you lost. It's kind of like in business, you get that yes, that no, and you get so many no's, and you're like, I'm giving up. That's it. I'm done. Yet that's when you have the discipline that kicks in and says, no, you cannot give up or give in. As a matter of fact, you got to keep pushing through, right? You got to keep moving forward. And I guess, from that perspective, I know many people might be going through that challenge of understanding, well, how did I keep moving forward? What are some tactical things that I can do to keep moving forward in my life or my personal or professional life? What would you say to something like that?
I think you don't always move forward. I don't think change or growth is linear. I think it's sometimes one step forward, two steps back. I think if you're always expecting to go forward, you're going to be disappointed. That's not how life is, right? You go through phases where you do well, you go through phases where you do badly, you go through phases where you don't seem to be getting anywhere. So I think for me, I'll relate it back to life, but if you take software delivery, which is something that I'm heavily involved in, modern software delivery, use techniques like Agile, but at its heart, what you do is you understand where you want to go. You understand where you are. You do a small amount of work, an experiment. You write some code, you design a new screen, whatever it might be. You see if it's got you closer to where you want to go, and then you do more of it. And if it hasn't got you closer to where you want to go, that's your one step back, you discard it. So if you treat it more as feedback, as information, and you don't take it so personally. Look, do we all take it personally? Of course we do.
Yeah.
Am I a robot? No, of course I take it personally, but I treat it like feedback. And I think that was what I got from tennis growing up. Because you fail and you lose. I mean, in any training session, you're gonna miss 20% of your shots minimum, and on a bad day, 50%. So you just get used to that information. You treat it as feedback. Okay, I've hit the ball out long, call it out the court. Okay, right, I've got to hit it. My coach would say, next one goes in the net, which obviously is a complete reversal. One goes in the net, make sure it goes 10 feet over the net. So you're constantly experimenting, you're getting feedback. So I think if you treat it like feedback, if you completely appreciate that you're never going to go forward all the time, and you have that real strong end point in mind, and you can measure your progress towards it, you're much more likely to get there. I think the other thing is, if you have some kind of accountability to that endpoint, you tell people about it, you reward yourself somehow. I don't know what the mechanism might be. And in business, it's very obvious. If you're going to undergo a large transformation, perhaps the CEO will stand up in front of all the analysts, all of the stakeholders, all of the shareholders, and say, we are going to move our company from here to here. I'm going to stake my pay on it. I'm going to stake my reputation on it. I'm going to stake the business on it. It's very hard to 6 months go by and go, sorry, I'm not actually going to do that thing that I just said. You're going to do whatever it takes to get there, because your public and your professional and your personal reputation is on the line. So if you can get the stakes in order such that it sets you up to really just push through, even when you don't want to, I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Take that feedback, extract that feedback, and have that accountability from that aspect. That's awesome. Um, Arif, if people wanted to work with you, where can they find you?
You can reach me at www.harbott.com, HARBOTT.com. I'm on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn. I have a book that you can Google on Amazon or any bookseller. Yeah, please come talk to me. I love talking about technology, love talking about business. I love working with startups and large companies alike. I like big chunky problems, get me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, just love talking to people. So anytime people reach out.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's actually what I wanted to find out. Like, who are the kind of companies you work with? Is it all on the spectrum? Startups, individuals, or who are your clientele?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I will work with a lot of startups as an angel investor. Professionally, usually I'm working with the larger businesses, typically 50 to 100 million plus in revenue. So larger businesses who are generally undergoing some kind of existential threat, some kind of transformation. They really need to transform the way they operate. They're being disintermediated. They're being attacked by new entrants and startups. They're in a kind of perpetual cycle of lack of innovation. They really know that they need to use technology to drive meaningful change and meaningful business results, but they don't know how to, because there are not that many technology leaders who have grown up in the digital age. I mean, I'm 42, so anyone older than me didn't grow up. My first job was in the internet, right? But I was
Right.
probably one of the early ones. So some people have not grown up with this technology, and sometimes it can be hard to understand. And I'm already finding this. Some of the bleeding edge technologies are things that I won't understand in 10 years. So it's just cycles. So I think there's a lot of people who are struggling. They know digital is important, especially in a post-pandemic era, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to use it to drive meaningful business results.
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of leads to this point that you made. The world is changing faster than ever, and technology is one of the most important tools to leverage to reach your business objectives. And so,
100%.
I know a lot of times, if you're not using your technology in some sort of shape or form, it might be kind of difficult. Or I don't know your opinion on this. Would that make it difficult for you to reach your end goal and really grow your company?
100%. I don't believe there's any company anywhere in the world that shouldn't be leveraging advanced technologies now, whether that's RPA, whether that's AI, machine learning, whether that's any kind of cloud computing, modern software engineering practices, use of SaaS. I mean, you have things like quantum computing on the horizon, which is going to be an enormous game changer. Computers, for as long as we can remember, have worked in kind of yes, no, 1, 0. Quantum computing can have a yes and a no in the same instant. So it opens up an entirely new world. Is it ready for commercial availability yet? No. Will it be in the next 5 to 10 years? Yes. Will there be a paradigm shift when that comes online? Yes. So you've got to start thinking about that now. And progressive businesses like Goldman Sachs, like NASA, like IBM, like Google, they're thinking about this now, and they're investing for the next 10, 20 years. And that's what you see with the best businesses. They're always scanning the horizon for the next technology innovation. And they've just got to work out when is the right time. And you only want to spend a small amount of your budget. It's like portfolio theory, small amount of your budget on these new technologies. And then at some point, when you realize it can really impact your business, you double down, you triple down, and you get there before your competition does. Otherwise, someone else is going to do it, and then you're playing catch up. And that's never a good position to be in.
Right, right. Wow. That's definitely amazing. And I know the one thing that I can see in my perspective, and even being a lot of people that might be doing something on a smaller scale and barely tapping into being, a small business owner or an entrepreneur, is, well, how can I leverage technology, or what can I do now to be able to do that? And a lot of times in that aspect, and I don't know if come across this, is people are trying to figure out, well, how, as you know, the any business, it really comes down to sales, and it comes down to conversions, right? And so it's like, how can I leverage technology to give me more leads that I can turn into sales and convert them into sales? And I think that's an aspect that many small business owners and people that are barely tapping into that business are facing. And so I don't know, is there something in terms of the technology aspect that can be done now to maybe not a big investment yet, just you're investing in getting those leads and getting those conversions, helping you from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about the internet and the digital modern age is that technology is available to anyone almost at any price point. If you think about 20, 30 years ago, you needed
Mhm.
a lot of money to leverage technology, right? You had
Right.
these huge, big mainframes sitting in data centers that only large corporations could have. Literally anybody now can go and get a Gmail account, sign up to, I don't know, Salesforce, or go and get a WordPress site. So you can start posting on social media for free, right? So there's never been a better time to grow a business as a startup, as an entrepreneur, as a single person business, as a whoever you are, whatever you're doing. So I think there's the most important things for me is, if you're an expert, you've got to create your voice. You've got to get on social media. You've got to be authentic. You've got to share amazing content. I mean, I write thousands of words in my blog posts because A, I love the topic. I'm blessed that I love what I do. But B, I just want to share as much knowledge as possible. And if that comes back at some point with a lead, great. If it doesn't, who cares? So I think if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a small business, share your knowledge, share your unique, why you're adding value. I think that's great. So many lead automation platforms out there that allow you to harvest LinkedIn or sign up subscribers, have a lead magnet on your site, which is a great piece of content that people enter their email address to download. All these little things. Have a website that's very visual and authentic and shows you or your business in a really kind of friendly, personable, authentic light. I think trust and authenticity are the things that have really come across in the digital age. We now know so much more about the businesses that we operate in. Before, there were faceless corporations. Now you know these people because they're posting on LinkedIn, they're posting on Instagram, you know about their lives. It makes it real. I think if you can do that, you're going to thrive in the modern business world.
Yeah, and one thing that also I realize and recognize is that now you can do so much, as you mentioned, with technology, and you'd be amazed. I've known people that don't even have a social media, don't even have, and I know some people use it for personal. I use it more for the business side of it. Yet they're not plugged into the system. I guess that's the one thing that I would say. And I ask myself, if you're not plugged into that system that is really growing rapidly, what does that mean for you in the next 5, 10, 15 years, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm surely kind of realizing this, that you can also kind of outsource a lot of your task to technology, right? Virtual VAs, or even just you have different applications that automatically you send an email, and then that is going to trigger a command for something to be sent to you, where you don't have to do it. And so there's a lot of benefits that definitely I think we need to tap into that and look into those things from that perspective. Some of those things come at no cost. Some might have a very small cost, yet it can help you in many different aspects, right? And
Yeah, there are lots of
yeah,
little costs. Yeah. I mean, and little things like, I mean, you have things like Zapier, which does all your kind of automation of tasks. I use CoSchedule, which basically I dump all my content for LinkedIn in once a month, and then it basically posts it throughout the month. I don't have to think about it. I mean, all these little things just make your life so much easier. And yes, there's a small cost, $10 here, $20 there, but it's not 20 million. It's not 30 million. It's like, I mean, and sometimes some people that's a lot of money, but it's not as much as it used to be. So I think the point of entry that you can start making a big impact. And I was reading about the lady who's on TikTok that suddenly went on the Drew Barrymore show, huge mainstream TV program that she's got on just because she had a camera and TikTok.
wow.
My children want to be YouTubers. They're like, when I grow up, I want to be a YouTuber. I'm like, what? But people make money doing it, right? And
Right.
it's just a different world. If you have a really authentic voice, you're consistent with your content, you're clever with your positioning, literally anyone can make money from anything now. It's a different world.
Yeah, you just got to be ready to step into that space, right? And just
Yeah.
go at it without having fear. We talked about that before. So, my last question for you is, for the people that are watching us and they're listening to us, if they're going through any kind of challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing they can start doing today to start overcoming that challenge?
Well, that's a big question, isn't it? I think if you have something that means something to you, I think if the end result, the goal, the objective, whatever you want to do, if it really means something to you, then you'll find a way, right? Human beings have shown through many horrific experiences and famine and feast and all sorts of things and wars throughout history, we're incredibly resilient, resourceful species, right? We can do almost anything. If you could put a person on the moon, we can go to the lowest point of the ocean, we can climb mountains. So we can do almost anything, but the thing has to be really worthwhile to you. It has to mean something. It has deep in your gut. You have to really want it. And if that's the case, you'll find a way. If it's not, you won't. I think it's not quite as simple as that, but it kind of is as simple as that. And then the other thing I would say is get good teachers. I would have people around you who can help you get to where you want to go faster. Of course, you can figure it out yourself, but so much better to have someone in your corner that can just shortcut all of that for you and help you get to where you want to be much faster and with less pain.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Definitely putting a meaning into something has a bigger purpose. And you're right. Sometimes we're doing so many different things without a meaning, and then we come to the end, and I'm like, for what? And you don't feel that self accomplishment or feel good about it. So I actually really like that, and definitely getting teachers or mentors that can help you with that. So that's awesome. Arif, anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No, I just want to say a huge thank you for having me on. I watched tons of your podcasts and videos before I came on, so it's an absolute honor to be here. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you guys connect with Arif. Go to LinkedIn, check out his website. Please make sure you reach out to him. Definitely, he is the man when it comes down to modern technology, and he can definitely help you with that. So connect with him. And do me a favor. You can find this podcast at your favorite podcast platform. Go ahead and like, share, and comment. And stay tuned for the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.